Hello, all. Welcome back to the second session of today's Open Symposium. We had an amazing first session, which has still left me a bit reeling, actually. I'm so excited about what I was hearing, because like you, I'm probably feeling like, oh my God, what can we do about this? So thank you very much again, Anne. We've now got another great session. Before we start with that, I will introduce myself, Mandy Charman. I am the Senior Manager of the Outcome Practice and Evidence Network and have the privilege of working with a wonderful team that you'll see or you'll hear from through the chat in an ongoing way because they're running all of the behind the scenes functions. So thank you very much to our lovely team. Thank you for making this session now. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of all of the lands we're zooming in from today. I'm on the lovely Wurundjeri lands in the beautiful, magnificent Macedon Ranges, and daily I give thanks for that fact. I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present, Aboriginal colleagues in the audience with us today, and the Aboriginal families and children we all work and walk alongside. We'll now just do a little bit of housekeeping for those who have just joined us. All our events our sessions are recorded, and that enables us to share them later. So just so that we're aware of that, if you can please keep yourself on mute and provide and open up your chat box so that you can provide comments or reflections or thoughts as we go. We also love questions. Presenters love to have others engaging with their ideas. So please don't hold back, even if it's just what a great session. This is really interesting. That's a lovely thing for presenters to be able to see. Keep your mic off. I've had a little bit of issue with muting this morning, so if you can just keep a mind on that. And if you have tech issues, we put the details of our lovely Matt Edwards, who works for the centre, in the chat. So jot that down in case there's a problem. If there is any issue, just give him a call. Okay, now on to the session. We have two presentations for the remainder of this time. First up is Safe Steps Family Violence Response Centre, talking about global insights into youth-centred crisis responses, very appropriate after Anne this morning. And then we'll hear from Munchausen, who'll talk about the Education Pathway Program, breaking the link between homelessness and educational disadvantage. Okay. Firstly, global insights into the youth-centred crisis response. We're fortunate to have Dr Chelsea Tobin with us, CEO of Safe Steps Family Violence Response Centre. Chelsea brings nearly 2 decades of leadership experience across family services, child protection, domestic violence services, and disability sectors, having held roles as CEO, director, and non-executive director. She's deeply passionate about ensuring that all victim survivors of domestic and family violence receive the highest standard of care, with a particular focus on supporting marginalised groups. Chelsea is dedicated to making sure that children and young people are recognised, heard and supported as victim survivors. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr Chelsea Tobin. Over to you, Chelsea.
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you all on this typical 4 seasons in one day in Melbourne. We're 30 degrees today and it's just been outside and it's raining. I will share my screen, just checking you can, because I've lost you now. Can you hear and see me? Can you see my screen and can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chelsea, but you need to go up to the top and there's a portion in the middle that says display settings. You'll need to swap because we can see your notes at the moment.
Oh, I didn't know I had notes. That's a bit of a win. Okay. Display settings. Okay.
And then it should have
Is that better?
Oh, nope.
We had this working before, didn't we?
We did. Bear with us, everybody. We all know what it's like.
What can you see now?
Beautiful. We've got it full screen. Thank you.
I'll let my heart rate go down. Good morning, everybody, and I'd like to echo the acknowledgement of the traditional lands of which we all are dialing in from today. I think no matter where you sit in the social services ecosystem, we're all really concerned about the high rates of violence, abuse, maltreatment, and suicide experienced by young people. And I know everybody joining this symposium is committed to preventing and reducing the impacts of abuse on children and young people, because we all see the evidence that makes us really concerned about things like prevalence and intergenerational trauma and the relationship between trauma and development. Historically, research in the family and domestic violence sector, historically research and services, particularly in the family and domestic violence sector, have predominantly concentrated on the adult victim survivor. And that's kind of resulted in children and young people focused services that are either relatively new or inconsistently applied across Australia or available across Australia, or just not deep and long enough, as many of you tell me. And that gives us downstream challenges in regards to evaluation around effective implementation. And it's sometimes disconnected from other sectors and systems and responses that are also trying to tackle this problem. So our sister or adjoining sectors. Children and young people now focus or feature squarely in every single plan, and that is a good thing. The question I wanted to talk to you about today was, how can we accelerate our progress to better serve young people escaping violence? Safe Steps tried to make a small contribution to this by understanding how other countries have sought to respond to children and young people fleeing violence. And the vehicle for this discovery tour was a Churchill Fellowship. For those who don't know, a Churchill Fellowship is an opportunity for individuals to conduct research in their chosen field, to explore new ideas and best practices from all over the world. And today I'm going to share a snapshot, a very small snapshot of some common themes and examples I saw from the 300 odd organisations I had across 30 cities in my Churchill Fellowship that I've just finished. But firstly, I did want to just touch on, why did Safe Steps do this? You might be asking yourself. The answer is because we're Victoria's only statewide 24/7 crisis service. So Safe Steps is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we're really committed to a quality secondary prevention service through making a crisis response really, really effective. And that should include services being relevant and helpful to young people that call us. Safe Steps makes and takes about 150,000 calls every single year across Victoria, and we provide over 40,000 nights of emergency accommodation. And tonight, like every single night at Safe Steps, 43% of the people that are staying with us, we run the emergency accommodation, are children and young people. And it's probably not them that I worry the most about, because the sector has their arms around them now. It's the young ones that don't call or can't call, or see traditional services as irrelevant or unhelpful. So we at Safe Steps did not seek to duplicate or overstep our expertise, but we recognised we needed to do better in our small part of the ecosystem for the young 17-year-old, 19-year-old that is scared to go home tonight. We were really interested in how young people want to seek help, in the places and spaces that they go, what is helpful help, and how might we accelerate our progress from learning through others. I did want to say, just in the interests of time, the aim was simply to share what we found on the Churchill Fellowship. The QR code on your screen will allow you to access all the case studies and the information that's being shared. There was a blog kept up of all the travels and all the 300 odd visits. So if something sparks your interest, you'll be able to access all that through the QR codes. We won't have time today. And also just wanted to note, we're developing a documentary film to showcase international practice, research, and possible considerations for the Australian context. It's interwoven with lived experience stories, which are very powerful and scary. And it aims to galvanise through film holistic policy and action for tailored youth services. So through the QR code, you'll also be able to get access to the documentary when it comes out. The last thing I just wanted to note was I've adopted in-country language used to describe what we term family and domestic and sexual violence. Most often overseas, this was referred to as domestic abuse, and language is a challenge I've chosen not to take on today. Firstly, I would just say it's important to reaffirm that the conversations we're having here are being had overseas. So service responses for young people fleeing violence isn't just an Australian issue. The lack of services really is a global concern. And there was much that I saw that suggested Australia, or particularly Victoria, post-Royal Commission, was ahead, particularly as it relates to information sharing, common risk assessments, and streamlining some processes for victims, albeit I would say still very adult-focused. And then there was areas where I think our thinking may not yet have gone and seems to be working well in other jurisdictions. And it was these areas that I thought today worth sharing, in my opinion, are examples of things working really well. So there was 3 key themes that I found in the Churchill Fellowship. The first was around relevancy. So relevancy to young people, to raise awareness, to enable voice, and to encourage them to help seek more. And we'll go into that in a minute. The second was around technology, so using the tech that young people expect in the places and spaces that they go, and I'll give you some examples of that. And the third was really around the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary teams and dedicated youth spaces with wraparound supports. And I'll show you some examples where I thought that was going really well. The first theme around relevancy, if we want youth to seek more help, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but we need to be relevant to them, which means we need to resonate, be helpful, and be in the places and spaces that they go. And there are several countries that you can see on screen, or organisations that I thought were doing this really well, and they're listed up there. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to pick one example today. And in the heart of the UK, I saw a really great example of being relevant. Safe Young Lives is a project by an organisation called Safe Lives, and they set out to tackle domestic abuse amongst young people. Data collected from across the UK, you can see my slides changing, right? Great, terrific. Data collected from across the UK painted a really grim picture. Children and young people aged 13 to 17 were experiencing the highest rates of abuse amongst all age groups. A quarter of girls and nearly 1 in 5 boys had reported physical violence. Yet, these young voices were largely absent from support services and merit conferences and, the service system. So high prevalence, low presence. So they were really determined to bridge this gap. And so they took what I think is quite an innovative approach. They assembled a young panel of change makers, which were survivors who brought their kind of raw experiences to the table, and ensured that every step was rooted in real world experiences of young people. And they did this properly and authentically. And that team, as they delved deeper, they really uncovered a disconnect between the language professionals use and the reality of youth. So terms like coercive control and intimate partner violence fell pretty flat, and young people resonated more with words like toxic and harmful. And that sparked the Talk About Toxic survey, which was UK-wide, which validated what young people had been saying all along: help us with tools to navigate the murky waters of relationships, to distinguish between what is okay and what is not okay in a relationship, the difference between care and control. But the challenge was how to deliver that information in a way that really spoke to young people. The answer came in the form of Draw the Line. Now, Draw the Line is an interactive digital platform born from the minds of the young people themselves. There's no logins, no personal data required. It's not an app cluttered on your phone, just real stories from real teens. users could draw a line through potentially harmful behaviours and compare their insights with peers and experts alike, or practitioners. The response was really overwhelming. Within weeks, they had 10,000 young people had flocked to the platform and submitted their story, seeking clarity about their own relationship and commenting on others. So it became a really self-fulfilling engine of support and awareness, addressing the core need that young people had expressed, which was help me understand what is and isn't okay in a relationship. But the journey didn't stop there. Recognising that most young people will turn to their friends for support first, the team launched the Your Best Friends project. That initiative aimed to empower the invisible frontline, so friends who often find themselves caught between loyalty and concern. And as the Friends Can Tell campaign took off, dedicated, young people domestic abuse advocacy roles were established across the UK and in every organisation. So the point of this example, I think, is that Safe Young Lives, Draw the Line, and the subsequent work on My Best Friend campaigns and the dedicated young people advocacy roles, I think, are really good examples of research being put into action by authentically engaging young people in its co-production. And I'd say it's a really good example of an implementation science approach where they linked the data to the voice to the practice. The second theme I wanted to briefly touch on today was tech. So the tech that young people expect in the places and spaces that they frequent, which is more digital environments. And so as we look to future-proof and ensure relevancy for the next generations with their unique challenges around violence, technology is undoubtedly going to play a really significant role in initial help seeking, in credibility of information provided, and also service provision. So traditional helplines like ours risk becoming really obsolete if they fail to adapt to the tech preferences and habits of today's youth. So we thought it was really important to understand how other organisations are using technology to remain relevant to the first theme, but also in the places and spaces that young people seek help and how they want to seek help, not how we want them to seek help. And so one exciting example, so on the slide there's a number of examples of organisations that I thought were doing this really well. Just to take one example that I think is worth talking about is Kids Help Phone in Canada. Kids Help Phone has a really broad remit around mental health. It's Canada's #1 trusted charity and has 46 million contacts a year from children and young people. It only has a population of 45 million. So in terms of relevancy, it's meeting a need. And it's really increasing its ways of providing help by creating more of a ecosystem, gamified approach to help seeking within platforms such as Roblox, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitch, etc. And then it has stepped care models to give more support to those who need it. So it is a much more of an embedded model, taking the help to the more familiar digital places that young people frequent. It also, the other reason I really liked this is it also employs, it leverages AI for issue identification and routing via a partnership with a not-for-profit institute, the Vector. And it employs natural processing language and AI-based triaging to adapt to the language of the young person to give a more precise service provision and create trust through mirroring their language. It has allowed them to really quickly connect high-risk texters with crisis responders. So suicide, any word around suicide will go straight to the top of the list. It's increased the volume of young people engaging with it by taking the model out in embedded platforms. So it's had 21 million additional contacts since it took the help out into the embedded digital environments where young people are. And the AI sort of issue identification triaging process has given them 90% accuracy on predicting the type of support a young person might need based on their conversational patterns. Of course, data privacy and mitigating bias in these IO systems is paramount, and any solution must have really robust safeguards to protect young people's data and ensure the algorithms are fair and equitable, and we must consider how we validate these systems to ensure there's no bias. But they basically said young people are using AI, we need to use AI, we need to be in the places they are, and so we're going to lean into this challenge. And the reason I think this is really important is we know from data, say from Youth Agency Foundry, which is huge across North America, 80% of young people across North America were more comfortable accessing local services and face-to-face support after a positive online response. And 90% of young people go online first. So how do we make this moment online really matter in terms of building trust and encouraging help seeking? The third and final theme I was going to talk to you about today was multidisciplinary teams and dedicated youth spaces. So at the moment, even in Australia, depending on what door you go through, it can play a really large role in kind of what response, let alone service, you receive. So you might be a young person and go through youth homelessness, mental health, child protection, family and domestic violence service, and that'll kind of set you on a course. I saw some models overseas where there's got specifically designed spaces for youth with multi and interdisciplinary teams there to meet the young person's need, but also allow agency and where the young person wants to go first. So examples of this might be the Children, Youth and Advocacy Centres or the Barnahus models, which you might be really familiar with. Among the last places I visited in Canada were 2 children and youth focused facilities. And these were safe places where the young person could access the wraparound supports they needed, and they needed to help them and start their recovery, importantly, from the moment of help seeking. Not from the moment of disclosure or the moment of a crime, but from the moment of putting their hand up and saying, I need some help. So one example of this we could talk through today is the Summit. The Summit is the Centre for Youth Resilience in Calgary. I was really blown away and inspired by this incredible facility. Not much visuals to show you, I'm sorry, just because of the privacy nature of it, but it offers sort of therapeutic support through a day hospital. It has community-based treatments, and it has a number of walk-in services for youth. The thing that was really interesting about this was the intersection of architecture and youth dedicated spaces to both reduce the kind of visual stress and increase the therapeutic impact of the built environment. And it created a really non-judgmental and very youth-specific space. I was really in awe of their risk-taking enabled adventure park, their gaming bike stations, their cultural spaces, their indirect service provision. It's probably the place I felt youth were most centralised, designed by them, for them, with the wraparound support they needed. You could just walk in, and it focused on mental health as the entry point to all other services that were on site. The second I thought was interesting was the Luna Children, Youth and Advocacy Centre. It brings together an on-site kind of multidisciplinary team that combines expertise from health, child protection, education, forensic examinations, homelessness, police, justice, and social work all on site. So the young person goes to one place, which is thoughtfully designed and child-centred, and the services are all on site and come to them. When I was there was a 12-year-old boy who had suffered significant sexual abuse over 12 years, and he asked if he could have his party at the Luna Centre because it had become such a safe place for him. I visited many of these centres, I think over 20 of them, and I really like the commitment of putting recovery at the forefront from the moment of help seeking. Across all of these, though, there were some real common elements across all these multidisciplinary centres. There was specific training for youth on how to talk to youth. There was comprehensive risk assessments for young people, not just focusing on the mother's needs. There was recognition, as you'd all know, that when there's family and domestic violence in the home, it often correlates with parenting issues, mental health, physical health, substance abuse, and other forms of maltreatment. And there were services for that. They really were relevant and promoted ways for children and young people to know how to seek help, which is something I really wish for here. We often build it and then spend no money really promoting it appropriately. You have to kind of go looking. They included recreational activities, so there was a bit of fun. It wasn't just all therapeutic interventions. They also had very tailored approaches which differentiated between developmental age and chronological age, reflecting that it really could be different things, and that there was a very clear role of child protection to avoid abdication, but it allowed both the response and a service to sit alongside each other in parallel. So lastly, what does this mean for Australia? There's a QR code if any of that sparked your interest, but I'll always begin by saying how can we get the current systems and responses working better? So how can we have a more joined up ecosystem or menu of services that makes sense for the young person walking in their shoes, and really keen to work with adjoining sectors who are also tackling this problem. Secondly, I'm really determined to increase awareness by being relevant to young people and reflecting that children and young people are not a homogenous group and need tailored and targeting support to seek help. Promoting and advertising shouldn't be a dirty word here. It's not okay that 29% of young people in Australia know where to get help and don't see traditional services as relevant. From the 300 organisations I visit, where there was best outcomes evidence was when there was cross-sectorial responses and multi and interdisciplinary teams all rowing in the same direction. Embedded models and tech will play a really significant role in help seeking and service delivery going forward. Kind of need to avoid a Kodak moment here. We need holistic youth specific policy and targeted programs that reflect developmental ages and stages. And I'm really curious to see how we can have more responses sitting alongside a service which gives young people more agency and centrality in their journey through the service system. I also know from running emergency accommodation across the state, displacing youth and refuge is also not the enduring answer. We will need some of this, and Safe Steps does a lot of this, but the developmental delays and the displacement impacts should never be underestimated. Can we help youth stay in community through a variety of models and friends and supports as the default position? Because we know despite how strong or healthy friends are teenagers' worlds, and any solution should sort of rightly centre this. And without doubt, the last thing I want to say, the one thing I heard in every single one of those 300 conversations was the importance of youth voice and authentic co-production. Easy to roll off the tongue, as is children and young people as victims in their own right, but actually much harder to really do properly. So I will finish there, but I welcome any questions and thank you for indulging me.
It's certainly not an indulgence, Chelsea. I just think everyone sat here I'm reflecting on the power of drawing together the evidence base and reflecting it back in a really concise sort of way. We have actually run out of time for questions. I'm so sorry about that. But I'm assuming, though, too, you would welcome people to reach out to you separately and also to engage with the informations you've provided. And I imagine this will create a whole heap of additional flow-on communications and products.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you put your details in the QR code, we can send you all the information, and you can sort of choose your own journey.
I'm fascinated. Just once again, amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Chelsea.